Welcome, everybody. I'm Rob. This is our BSPU call. Excited to be with you all. Today, we're going to cover 4 big questions that I received this week that I think are important enough that either A, you've asked them yourself, or you haven't thought of asking them, and you probably should. And so these are the 4. We're going to talk about what the biggest mistake that I see professional people making when they're writing a book. And I'm going to talk through the details of that and how to avoid that mistake. Then we're going to talk about the key things that you need in every chapter of your book, how to lay out the chapters of your book so that it builds your authority, it does what you want it to do, it attracts the right clients. Then number 3, we're going to talk about the best way to title your book, how to create your title. It's something I talk about a lot, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about the ways that you should be using your book to generate leads and land clients. Okay? So let's start with number 1. The biggest mistake that I see professionals, experts, coaches, and consultants, etc., the biggest mistake I see them making when they are writing a book, that is they do not start with the end in mind. Okay? Now I'm going to break that down because that sounds very, very simplistic. You have to start with what your goal is for the book. What do you want this book to achieve for you? You have to be as specific as possible about that. You know, it's interesting. I just saw today on social media, I follow the NFL and love the draft and all of that. And I saw, Bill Belichick wrote a new book. And Bill Belichick is the winningest coach, winningest Super Bowl coach in history. I think he's number 2 all-time list of wins in the National Football League, I think behind Don Shula. But he's right up there. I mean, the guy is a legend, obviously coached Tom Brady, etc. And he wrote a book, and he wanted to write a book for his legacy. The guy does not need any money. He's stupid rich. Okay, he's got all the money he could ever want. He's dating a 24-year-old. He's 73. I mean, who knows what's going on in the dude's mind? But he's got all the money that he could want. He wanted to write a book for his legacy. Okay, this is what he said he wanted to do. The problem was his team and the people around him wanted him to write a book to sell lots of copies and make a lot of money. The guy does not care about money at this point. He just got hired as a college coach at UNC, which seems ridiculous to me. Why go from, being the number 1 winningest Super Bowl coach in history to coaching in college ranks at 73, whatever. I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, but it's not for the money. He wanted to write a book for his legacy, but his team didn't want him to. Why is that important? Well, his team came out with all different kinds of press about his mistakes. See, they wanted him to write within the book all the mistakes that he made that cost them Super Bowls, that cost them losses. And they emphasized that in his publicity and his PR. And I saw this letter that his girlfriend actually put on social media from him talking about how he wanted his book to be about his legacy. And now all the interviews are wanting to talk about all the ways that he effed up in his career, etc. And he's pissed about that. He's pissed because the team and he were not on the same page with what the goal for the book was. He wanted this book to be his legend, his legacy. Now, I don't think that's why most of you are writing your book. But if it is, then you need to think about that ahead of time. Whatever it is that you are driven to write a book for, and you can't do everything with your book, right? Like Belichick, his team knew, hey, if we want to sell a lot of books, we got to create some controversy. We've got to get you on a lot of shows. We got to talk about all the ways you effed up, etc. That's not what he wanted. So you need to ask yourself, what do you want first and foremost from your book? If you want your book to attract clients and your ideal client, the client that you love working with, that is a really specific client that pays you the most amount of money, then you better write a book that really helps him or her. And if you don't, then don't expect that your book is going to attract that. You've got to focus on the right goal. Writing to impress is different than writing to attract. It is, right? I don't try to be an artist and flowery in my speech. I'm writing on a, who knows, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade level. I want people to understand my books, read my books quickly, and decide if they're interested in working with me or not, if they're attracted to my model, if they're attracted to my success. success, etc. So don't try to cram in your book how smart you are or how impressive you are. I'm sure all of those things are important. Let that come out based on your examples and your case studies and like how you help people, and very specifically how you help the right person. This is what a client attracting book does. So the biggest mistake that I see is that people are not thoughtful ahead of time about that. And they sit down to write, they write their story, they write their thoughts, they, maybe because of people around them, friends, family, etc., they're writing a book that is not going to meet the ultimate goal that they're interested in meeting. I see this a lot with professionals. So decide ahead of time, what do you really want your book to do for you? Maybe one day you'll get to the point like Bill Belichick and you'll really want to write a book about legacy for you, right? About, those things. And you may decide, hey, I really want to write about my mistakes so people can learn from them, etc. I get that. Great. That's really not what Bill Belichick wanted to do. He did not care about selling a whole lot of books. Sure, he wanted to, right? He's an egomaniac and he wants to win. He wants to sell a lot of books, but not at the expense of his legend. And that's what's happening. Okay? So that's the biggest mistake. Start with the end in mind and you will avoid that mistake, and be as specific as possible with the end in mind. Okay? All right. Question number 2. We figured out what the end in mind is. We know where we want to go. All right. How do we actually write the book? How do we create the chapters? What are the essential ingredients within the chapter? I was speaking to a new client and we were talking about this, and I said, look, in your industry, they work with very large companies, hedge funds, big investment groups, big investment banks, and they get paid really large sums of money from these organizations. I said, honestly, if your book sells 1,000 copies, great. But really, your book just needs to sit on the desk of like 200 people and you will make millions of dollars, right? Because their average client is worth so much money in their particular instance. That's not true for me. That's probably not true for you. So I pulled off my bookshelf one of my clients' books, Jennifer Egger's book. And I said, Jennifer and I did a podcast together because Jennifer emailed me that she wanted to start on book number 2. So we started on book number 2 with her. And she said, I don't know if you know this, but basically I followed your strategy and I mailed a copy of this book out to 200 CEOs, CMOs, COOs, etc. She does high-level consulting. And she said, over a 2-year period, I made $500,000 from mailing 200 books out to my clients. I said, that's killer. So I told them this story. And I said, what you need to think about is you need to think about the 200 people that you would like this book to be sitting on their desk. And you need to think about the problems that they have, the challenge that they have. And you need to think about the stories and case studies that you have that meet the challenges that they have. Because, they've been in business for a long time and they've solved all of these. So what are the ingredients? Well, let me give you a few ingredients for the chapters of your book. Number 1, you should always have some type of origin story, right? So you're going to want to tell your story. Now, that doesn't mean your book is all about your story. It is not. Unless it is. But if you want it to attract clients, it needs to be more about their story than yours. But your origin story is important as well. And so that might be the introduction. That might be sprinkled throughout the book. Fantastic. As where it is applicable. But then you need to think for the rest of the chapters, what are the big problems? What are the unique solutions? And what are my case studies and success stories that go with those things? So for an example, with this client, we were talking about, some examples of their customers, and they work in the energy industry in European Union, and they help to consult with, these big venture capital firms and, big money firms that want to enter into the energy sector. I said, okay, what are some of the problems that those people face? Well, some of the problems is they don't know what they're doing. They've never traded in the energy sector. They don't understand, and they think they can set up all of the licenses and everything that they need, even because they have big teams, et cetera, and they don't realize that it will take them years if they don't know what we know. I said, there you go. Okay, so one chapter at least needs to be about somebody that attempted to do this on their own, and it took them 2.5 years. And in that 2.5 years, they could have made $100 million or who knows more. But instead, they were fighting with the legislative bodies and all the different, regulators, et cetera. And then they came to you and you got it done. And they were like, oh, we have like 11 stories like that. Fantastic. Great. And I said, here's what's going to happen. When it comes time for you to mail out 5 copies, 10 copies, 50 copies, copies to hedge funds that want to start trading energy in the European Union and they're not set up yet, you are going to mail the book out and you're going to put a sticky note right on front. And that sticky note is going to say, hey, I know you're interested in trading in the European Union. You don't need to read this whole book. We're the experts on the topic. Just read chapter 6. That's it. Why? Because chapter 6 is the story that fits them the best. So what you need to do is you need to have a chapter 6 for every one of your clients, right? You need to have your client, their problem, your unique solution, and your success story, and you need to have that sprinkled throughout your book. That's how you come up with your chapters. That's the best way for you to come up with your chapters. Now, there are other elements. You should have a call to action at the end of every chapter, etc. Drive them back to your email list, etc. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to create chapters that solve the problems of your best clients. Make sense? Okay, that's number 2. All right, question number 3. What is the best way to title my book so that people actually are interested in it and buy it? The right people. So I'm going to give you 2 points here that I think are important. Number 1 is you should do research first. Like, take a step back, go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble, go to ChatGPT and ask for the top 100 bestsellers from last year in your genre. Just take a step back. Then take a look at what those top even 10, 20, 50. Take a look at what those top 10, 20, 50, 100 bestsellers in your genre have in common. Take a look. Do some research. You will find that there are commonalities. I talk about this on my workshops, and you guys have heard it, but commonalities on title. Usually, the best-selling books titles, 90 out of 100 every single year, are going to be 1, 2, or 3-word titles, right? Now, there's lots of things about the title that is really important. We'll get to that in the next part of this. But if you just take a look and do a little bit of research in your genre, you will find out what is working and what isn't when it comes to bestsellers. I know you probably have something in your mind, and I know that you have some ideas, and I'm sure they're great ideas, but just compare them with the success stories that are already in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, publishing houses, etc. And if it doesn't match up with those successes, then you may want to reconsider it, okay? Take a good hard look at what those covers and titles look like. That's number 1. Number 2, so research, always. Doesn't take long. Number 2, a great title has 3 things, and it does 3 things really quickly. Number 1, it grabs their attention. Now, it does that with the words, but it's going to do that with the cover as well. So the cover is clearly an important part of that. It also your title needs to speak clearly to either their pain or their desire, okay? As Tony Robbins likes to say, we're either, constantly driven by our desire, this attraction, or our pain, this desire to repel or to move away from our pain. So your title needs to grab attention. It needs to either speak to their pain or speak to their desire. And then last but not least, and this can be done in the subtitle, it needs to hint at the transformation that your book delivers. Your subtitle is all about the promises of your book. So the main title, 1 to 3 words, gets attention. If you can, it speaks to a desire or pain. And then your subtitle can speak to the transformation. That's the promises. That's the benefits of somebody reading your book, okay? What I tell potential clients on my workshops all the time is, honestly, marketing books is not terribly hard if the author did a good job on the cover and the title, okay? If you did a good job on the cover and the title, then all you really need to do is put that beautiful ad, because that's what it is. Your cover and title, that's your ad. Just put that ad in front of the desired audience. So if you wrote a book that speaks directly to fill in the blank, people that are interested in corporate consulting, then great. There are blogs that have hundreds of thousands and millions of people every month that are interested in corporate culture, corporate consulting, etc. And if you have a book cover and a book title that speaks directly to their pain or their desire, then all you have to do is put it in front of them. That's it. And your book will move. Okay? So that's the best way to title your book. And I'll say title and cover your book. Do research, number 1. And then number 2, make sure you have a title and a cover that grabs attention, speaks to their pain or desire, and also the transformation that your book is going to provide for them. That's number 3. Last but not least, and maybe most importantly, how can I use my book, or how can I best use my book to generate leads and to land clients? Now, this is kind of a throwback to the very first thing that I talked about. down, right? What is your goal? You need to write your book first and foremost with your goal in mind, with your true desire in mind. Most authors think that selling the book is the goal. That's not. For most of you, my clients, that's not the goal. Yes, we want the book to sell. And my book sold 100,000 copies, but that's not the primary goal. The primary goal was about getting this into the hands of the people that I could help and that would want my help to do more for them. PR, media, ghostwriting, all the things that bestseller publishing does. So we want to flip that, right? Yes, we want our book to sell, but that's ancillary. That's secondary. That's something else. The goal is to get your book, the perfect title, the perfect cover, and remember what I said about the chapters. Great case studies, great stories, great chapters. All we want to do is any means possible get that book into the right person's hands. That's what we want to do. And so if it's like Jennifer Eggers, where all she needs to do is mail 200 copies of this out over a 2-year period and make $500,000, beautiful, right? Like this client that I talked to that's in the energy sector, they were kind of bemoaning the fact that, their market is very small, their industry is small, and, they had all these different ideas about what to do with their book. And I'm like, look, if you want to write a legacy book, then let that be your goal, right? And pick a broad topic and write about your success principles or whatever. That's usually towards the end of people's careers, not at the beginning or the middle of their careers, but you can do whatever you want. I said, on the other hand, you are in a perfect and beautiful spot. You have maybe 1,000 potential clients in the world. That's fantastic. That means that there's just 1,000 people I have to get in front of. Guess what? For like 5 to 10 grand, you could do that. You could get in front of every single potential client for just a few $1,000. I can't do that. Most of you can't do that. So if you have a really narrow audience, don't begrudge that. Don't be concerned about that. That's beautiful. Now, obviously, I hope they will pay you a whole lot of money, because if you have a small audience and they don't pay you much, then that's a problem and you should change. But that's a whole different issue, right? So what do we need to do then? Okay, if the goal isn't to sell the book, the goal is to get the book into the right person's hands, then we need to go back to number one. What are you really trying to accomplish? If you want to be a speaker, fantastic. Who would want you to speak for them? That's what you need to ask yourself. What conferences, what association, right? What organizations would want me to come in and speak based on my expertise that is displayed on the cover and the title, okay? Based on your expertise that's displayed on that cover and title, who would want you to come and speak? That will either write you a big check or that you can get in front of them and sell your stuff, right? Now, if you say, well, based on my cover and title, probably not many. Okay, well, then that's a different problem, right? That's a different issue that we have to deal with. But if you want to speak, your cover and title just needs to be put in front of the person that can make a decision on whether or not you should be a speaker for them. So you want to speak? Great. Find the places where you should speak and send your book. Send it to them. Send it to them in a big yellow envelope. Send it to them in a FedEx envelope. Send it to them with a cover letter, but get it in front of them. You want PR and media? Fantastic. Send them a copy of your book. Send that to the executive producer of the fill in the blank, Good Morning America, or the Today Show, or wherever it is that you want to be. Send it. You want clients? Great. What kind of clients do you want? You can get your book in front of your clients. And don't be afraid, by the way, to think big. A few years ago, I had an author that we worked with. We did a big launch for PR and media, and they wanted to start a charity. And that charity was focused on the people that had lost limbs in Mozambique. I don't know the story, but Mozambique used to have mines all throughout the country. And actually, Princess Diana, so we're going back, I don't know, 25, 30 years, maybe even further back. Princess Diana actually really kind of spearheaded the work to get all of the mines out of Mozambique. But there were still, and are still to this day, so many people that are crippled by that. And obviously it's not a very wealthy country. And so they went, and their hearts really went out to the plight of the people in Mozambique. And they wrote a book about that. And they wanted to start a charity, and they wanted to raise millions of dollars. And they had never done that before. And so we had a discussion. We said, well, okay, let's think big here. Who, if you got this book in front of them, would it be like a game changer to your charity? charity to everything. And they were like, well, the president of Mozambique, the president of the country. Okay, well, can you get the book in front of the president of the country? Well, doggone it, they did. They got the book in front of the president of Mozambique. He loved it. You can't love something that you never see. You can't love something that, you never find out about. They got it to him. He loved it. He invited them to meet with the ambassador of Mozambique at the time. I don't remember what his name was. And that went fantastic. They were then invited to present before the United Nations. I went with them with a film crew. We went to the UN. This is, I don't know, 7 years ago, something like that. They presented before the Indian consulate and then before the UN General Assembly. They raised millions of dollars for this brand new charity because of one book in front of the right person. So like, don't be afraid to think big. And this is a charity. This is right. Like, obviously you've got to be the one to spearhead this. You've got to think, okay, where can I speak? Where can I do media and PR? Where are my clients? Where are the biggest opportunities for me? I don't know if you'll get a chance to speak in front of the United Nations or not, but I know you never will if you don't do anything with your book. We never would have went to the UN had it not been for the work that they did to simply get the book on the desk of the president of Mozambique. And in fact, he loved it so much, he rewrote the foreword. He wrote a new foreword for the book, which to this day is the foreword in the book. It's called Florencia, an accidental story that we published and marketed for my clients, Douglas Bowman and John Mullen. But you get the idea. Like, don't be afraid to think big, but you got to think, how can I use this book to generate leads, land clients, get speaking engagements, get PR and media? The real money and the real opportunity, the real impact is what the book leads to, okay? That is where the rubber meets the road. That's where all the excitement is, okay?